We begin with President Trump on the verge of a truly historic diplomatic triumph as his tough talk appears to be paying off. The leaders of North and South Korea, this was wild, agreed in principle today to remove all nuclear weapons from their countries and to work toward formally ending the state of war that has existed since the 1953 truce. Trump was ecstatic over the news, tweeting early in the day, "Korean War to end." The president later acknowledged there was much work to be done, but he sure sounded optimistic.
A lot of good things are happening with respect to North Korea. President Obama told me when I had the one meeting with him, he said, that's your biggest problem. That's going to be the most difficult thing you have. And honestly, I wish it was handled earlier. I wish it were handled by another administration years ago. I'm not just talking about President Obama. I go back to any administration you want. But over the last 25 years, this should have been handled a long time ago, not now. This should not have been left for me to handle. But we will handle it. We're handling it well.
So is it time for Trump's critics to concede that his tough rocket man talk on the sanctions, North Korea, actually made a difference here? Republican Congressman Luke Messer has been urging colleagues to support, wait for it, a Nobel Peace Prize for the president. He joins us now from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and former Trump campaign advisor and China policy expert Mike Pillsbury is going to be with us, as is Asia policy expert Riley Walters of the Heritage Foundation. Great panel. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, I have to say, guys. Yeah. The idea of the North Korean dictator crossing the DMZ to meet the South Korean leader, obviously speaking the same language, meeting together, embracing at one point after the handshake, after they had their meeting. Again, this is initial still in its initial phases. But, Congressman, I have to say, I think the only person who could have gotten us to this place, again, we'll see where it goes, but it's Donald Trump because of his unconventional approach to negotiations and, frankly, his tough talk. You didn't know if people are going to say, are you going to launch a nuclear war, unilateral first strike, Mr. President? He's like, no, but we're going to solve this. Congressman, how did Donald Trump manage to get us this far?
Well, it is extraordinary. And, you know, Laura, I've been saying for a couple months now, if North Korea actually ends its nuclear program and you bring peace to this peninsula after 70 years, Donald Trump deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. The only reason that the evil North Korean dictator is coming to the table is because there's a new sheriff in town. And President Trump's Twitter diplomacy is working. His tough talk is making a difference. It's bringing both North and South Korea to the table. And China, too. Of course, we have a long way to go here, but these events of the last 24 hours are extraordinary and almost impossible to overstate. It's a very big deal, and it is happening because of President Trump's leadership.
We're going to talk about the Chinese involvement in all of this because we cannot overlook the fact that we have major administration officials going to China on Tuesday, Bob Lighthizer, the USTR, and also, of course, we have Steve Mnuchin and other senior level members of the administration going to talk trade. But Mike Pillsbury, I want to go to you. I want to do a flashback. It's kind of Flashback Friday today, and play for our entire panel the scene from the Nobel Prize ceremony involving newbie Barack Obama. Let's watch.
Has the audacity to hope and the tenacity to make these hopes come true. That is what makes him so important. By his own behavior and leadership, he is demanding that we all take our share of responsibility for a global response to global challenges. We congratulate, therefore, this year's laureate, President Barack Obama, on what he has already achieved.
Mike Pillsbury, that was in 10.5 months. He was getting people to accept responsibility for facing global challenges. Now, if that's the benchmark, Mike Pillsbury, then Donald Trump, regardless of what happens, has to be almost a shoo-in for the Nobel. I think the congressman's right here.
Well, I agree. Obviously, perhaps President Trump has earned 2 Nobel Peace Prizes. As you know, the authority of these peace prizes is somewhat in doubt. It's a committee of 5 who are chosen by the Norwegian Parliament, and they tend to be retired members of the Norwegian Parliament. So they've made some real mistakes over the years, people whose Nobel Peace Prize was not earned. In the case of President Trump, this is a tremendous success. The only problem is the degree of pressure he used to get it may turn the stomachs of some of the Norwegian members of Parliament. Don't forget he had nuclear aircraft flying toward North Korea. He had the discussion with the South Korean defense minister that we might return our nuclear weapons to be deployed again in South Korea, as many as 800 or more. Other kinds of pressure, obviously, was the massive, very focused sanctions, even on the royal family in the north. So this is not your ordinary idealistic make a speech kind of Nobel Peace Prize candidacy. This is someone who really got results, but the results came only through pressure. I think the Chinese also helped, and frankly, President Trump linking trade and the delegation going next week to helping with North Korea. That was a very bold gesture, heavily criticized by the left-wing media. But it looks like it was a stroke of genius. The Chinese helped us on North Korea. Who would have thought, Laura?
No, I think that's a great point. Riley, I want to go to you on this. I frankly I'm a little bit worried on the linking of China trade to North Korea. Obviously, the choice between thermonuclear war or the China 2025 program where they dominate every major industry. I mean, it's not the easiest of concerns to look at when you look at them both. We can't allow China to dominate high tech. We cannot allow China to dominate 3D printing, space weaponry, commercial aviation. But that is their subsidizing goal. They're doing that across every industry. And I'm worried that Donald Trump is so focused on the North Korea deal that will let up the pressure on China that also is necessary. But so far, he's had great judgment.
There's definitely a difference in opinion on what the sort of immediate threat from North Korea and the future threat from China sort of represent. Obviously, last night was a historic event. This is setting up toward the upcoming meetings between the leader of North Korea and Donald Trump. China's role in this going forward is skeptical, I think. I mean, the president of China, Xi Jinping, had the North Korean leader come visit him almost out of the blue in the middle of the night just a couple months ago to preempt his visit, the North Korean leader's visit with South Korea and the United States. And so I think definitely the maximum pressure that the United States has been applying has been both, influencing and incentivizing North Koreans to come to the table and the Chinese to reciprocate. Congressman,
I want to play for you and the panel a few of our favorite friends on the other side of the aisle who refuse to give President Trump even a modicum of credit here. Let's watch.
People shouldn't talk about Donald Trump or anybody in North or South Korea winning the Nobel Peace Prize.
My message for President Trump tonight is curb your enthusiasm. Don't set up unrealistic expectations for the summit that cannot possibly be fulfilled, because if you do have these expectations and it fails, that may actually draw us closer to war.
This was to show that nobody else is in control and that China and the United States is not in control, that the two Koreas are seizing the process.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they just sua sponte.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy.
Came together. It was just like pixie dust, and they came together. That last comment, I mean, of all the dumb comments I've heard, that last comment was among the most moronic. Congressman.
Well, one, the president's being strong towards China. That's part of why we're even in this position in the first place.
Can't let up, though.
Second, could you imagine?
He cannot let up on China. They are ripping us off at every turn. Mike Pillsbury knows this. And just because they've helped on North Korea doesn't mean we can let them off, because they are poised to dominate all these industries.
Absolutely. And we are where we are because this president's shown strength. And you wait, he's going to show strength towards China. You already see them caving in. But here's the deal, right? The withering criticism of folks on the left. Could you imagine how they would be behaving if Barack Obama was president and you had events like last night? I'm running for the United States Senate against Joe Donnelly, a Democratic senator who, like all those others on the left, have criticized this president's diplomacy. Look, Twitter diplomacy is working. North Korea has come to the table in a way that most of us would have never imagined just a few months ago. You cannot overstate how big a deal last night was. Of course, there's a long way to go, but we are here because America is safest when America is strong. And with this president, President Trump, we are strong again on the world stage. And to have events like what have happened in the last 24 hours is just another big step in the right direction. And I agree with you, Laura. Listen, we've got to be strong towards China. This president is stepping forward and getting tough on China in a way that hasn't happened in decades. And I'm just confident he's going to continue to do it. Look,
he's had great instincts.
This guy wrote The Art of the Deal. He's a remarkable leader.